Hello and welcome back. So now we have movement basically taken care of. The next thing I want to do is show this menu when you click on this building. Actually, before that, it just occurred to me that if we open up our where was it? The camera movement. So the camera control script. Um, if like why don't we just have three tiers? We can have close to the edge, right on the edge, and then outside the bounds. That'll be even faster. And so outside the bounds will be really easy because we can essentially just set this to 0, I think. Oh, actually, so move speed times 1.5. Why don't we try that? And so it's going to run through this 3 times. The third time it's guaranteed to hit each of these. So it'll be moving 3.5, basically 5 times as fast as this move speed. And it's only going to happen when we're completely outside the screen with the mouse. And so that'll be when y is less than 0 or when it's greater than 1 in either the x or the y directions. So I'm just going to try that out. So I've got speed 1, speed 2, and speed 3. And I think I'll bring down the middle one a little bit. Yeah, that feels much better. Cool. I'm really happy with that. Feels like a solid move control. Alright, so next, what do we want to do? So I think I want to create these using the context menu by clicking on the main building. So when we select this, we have our selectable actor script. And I think I'm also just going to create a Nexus script. And we probably want a class for each different button. So we could have like a my button class, and then there could be like a button for creating this guy, a button for creating different types of units, a button for setting the rally point. Each of those buttons would implement the my button class. I'm trying to figure out if I actually want to do that or not. Yeah, I might as well. So I'm just going to right click and create a new class. Actually, maybe we just want to put them in prefabs. No, whatever. I'm going to call this my button. I think button is taken by Unity, so we have to call it something different. So, yeah, my button will be just fine. And I'm not sure what we want in that class yet. I'm going to open up the canvas. And in the options panel, I'm just going to right click and create a button. And I'm going to anchor it to the top left. Oh. And I'll set the width and height to the same value. So why don't we try 90? And I know that there is a built-in grid control in Unity. Maybe we should try to figure out how to use that. Actually, this is a game jam. I'm not looking to pick up a new skill here. So I'm just going to manually place these buttons. I've tried the grid view before, and I've had mixed results, and so I don't want to flounder around on camera. Yeah, that's good enough for me. So why don't we try these buttons out? Button 1, button 2, button 3. Looks good. I'm just going to disable button 2 and button 3. I don't know if I'm ever going to use those in this project. So in our button here, we can change interactable to false. What's a cool word? Daedalus. And so by default, we're going to be creating reapers. All right. And the reapers are going to allow us to kill enemies and also harvest resources. Eventually this will be a mini-map. I probably won't actually finish that within the time constraints of this game jam. But I think I did a video before. No, maybe not. Maybe one day I'll do a mini-map video. I've played with those before. I haven't actually done a video for it. So anyway, now we have these buttons. Oh yeah, I want to move all three of them up just slightly. And for that, I want to set the rotation to local, and then I can just drag this like that. Alright. So we've got some buttons here. And I guess I should put a price in there. So let's say the Reaper is worth $6,000. Alright. Now, for some reason, these look like they're being centered differently. And that might be because there's an extra space here. Oh yeah, that's it. So there was an extra character return after priceless. So make sure I take that out. There we go. So now I just want to click this button and have Reapers pop out. So we need to attach that behavior to the nexus. So we're going to say public. Now, whenever you want to attach a Unity UI button to a game object, that button has to access a public void method. So public void spawn I'll call it try spawn Reaper. And actually, just to keep it generic, we'll pass in an integer, and that'll correspond to the selection. So we could have like 1, 2, 3 for Reaper, Corsair, Daedalus. So this will be int, and you know, why don't we do an enum actually? Public enum ship type. Reaper, Corsair, Daedalus. And this is expecting a ship type. And then we can look into these and figure out like we could set up some sort of price table and say like if we have enough money, create this type. Since we're only using Reapers for now, we can say if, and we actually don't have any sort of currency. We're going to create another class for that. So that'll be actually turn that back on. I'm using something called Flux, and it dims my screen. I'm using kind of a huge monitor right now, and so when it's too bright, it drives me crazy. So if the colors seem weird to you, sorry about that. But I recommend checking out Flux. It's pretty awesome. Maybe it's a little bit too dim. All right. So back to this. New behavior script. That's not what this should be called. And since this is going to be such a simple game, we're going to have one type of currency. So that'll be public float money. When the game starts, I want to save whatever the previous amount of money was. Or I'm sorry, I want to load whatever the previous amount of money was. And then when we quit, or like maybe every 5 minutes or something, we should save the amount of money. And void, I'm going to say public void add minerals. And yeah, this will be called minerals. Float amount minerals plus equal AMT. And now we're going to save how much minerals we have. And maybe we don't want to do this every single time. We'll look into that later. But I'm going to save those using the player prefs Unity built-in API. We'll get to that in just a moment. But for now, we have minerals, and we can say public void get minerals. And this will be private. And I'm actually not even using my button. Well, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to use that or not. I might just resort to using prefabs for everything. Anyway, I probably should have planned this out better. So try spawn. If currency manager, and this is going to be a singleton, public static instance currency manager instance. Instance equals this. And I have my selection controller game object. I'm just going to rename this to scripts and bring that up to the top. because this is going to hold the currency manager as well. So if currency manager dot instance dot get minerals is greater than 5999, we have enough for the Reaper. So currency manager dot instance dot oh, why don't we just save when we subtract minerals? Because we're going to be adding minerals probably multiple times a frame once the player is doing well enough, because they're going to be killing lots of enemies and they're going to be harvesting lots of resources. Subtracting minerals, that's only going to happen when we buy something, so that seems like a good opportunity to save the amount that we have. And yep, so now we have subtract minerals. And we're going to create a ship, and we need a spawn point for that. So I'm just going to create an empty game object called spawn point. Place it like right here. And we just want to make sure that it's directly on the ground. And I set it to 0, but sadly it's showing us the local position. So take that off the parent, set that back to 0, and then put it back on the nexus. And now we need a reference to that. So that'll be public game object spawn point. Alright, so now we have the code to create the Reaper. We just need to find the Reaper and drop it onto this field here. So Reaper 1 goes into Nexus. Oh, and something broke. Return minerals. Oh, okay. Public float. Okay, so spawn point on spawn point. Alright, and now it's still not going to do anything when I hit this button because we haven't associated the button with the method. So let's drop our game view back on here. And I'm just going to find this button in the scene. So that'll be button 1. And now you can see on click, the button doesn't do anything. So we're going to add a on click runtime only. Now that it wants to do something, it wants a behavior here, but to access the behavior, it needs a reference to an object that holds that behavior. And so the nexus is what we want to target. And within that nexus, we have our nexus script. And on that script, we have what did we call it? Try spawn. and it's not showing up, and I suspect that that is because the parameter here. So why don't we let that compile and try again? Alright, so it didn't like our parameters. I guess you're not allowed to have an enum here. And I guess we can just call this try spawn reaper. I was gonna have one method for all of the different buttons, and then they were just gonna pass in different parameters. But I guess we have to call different methods. I think we could pass in actual numbers here, and it would be fine. It just doesn't like the enum, and I want it to be as explicit as possible. Like each method should, like the function should be obvious. So yeah, we're just gonna do it that way. So I'm clicking this button. It's not doing anything. Well, we don't have any money, so that's probably why. Currency manager. And why don't we just set this to public for now? Okay, it worked. And it's not letting me select that one. I'm guessing we haven't applied our changes to the prefab. So Reaper 1, yeah, see how this guy has less scripts attached? Apply this, and now he's got all of his behaviors. All right. It's looking pretty good. What's next? Alright, so what I want to do now is fix this to where these options show up if you have the nexus selected, and otherwise nothing shows up here. And for that, I think I'm just going to duplicate this panel. And I'll say panel options nexus. And I'm going to create a panel options Reaper, but I don't think I'm going to use it because I think the Reaper, he's simple enough that he can just be controlled by the mouse. So he doesn't need an options menu, so when his is active, there's not going to be any buttons. And yeah, I guess I'll just delete him. Wait, what just happened? Oh, okay, I see. So yeah, so just hide those, because later I might come back and I might want to use button 1 for something, but for now, not necessary. And this panel, right now it's being hidden by the Reaper panel, like that's why it's kind of like faded out like that. So we'll just hide the Reaper panel. And I'm going to click on my nexus and give it a tag of nexus. And when you do that, it doesn't actually assign the tag. You have to click on it again and then say nexus here. Whoops. Why is it not letting me select that? You. There. Nexus. There. And the Reaper, I'm going to add a tag for Reaper. So anything with a menu, we just want to give a tag to. And now I'm actually going to make my selection controller also control the menu, which makes sense because as he sees that different objects are selected, he can manage the menu. And the menu is context based. So I think that makes sense as a responsibility for this class. If the class was doing a lot more stuff, I might want a separate menu class. But I feel like this seems reasonable. So we have set selection, we have get selection. In set selection, so we also need a reference to the canvas. And to reference canvases, we need using Unity Engine .ui. And we're going to say public canvas. And actually, we can just reference the panel directly. So public maybe we should say rect transform or game object. I guess we'll just say game object. Public game object panel, and we can call them Nexus panel and Reaper panel. And later we might end up adding more panels. So I'm going to create a public method called disable panels, or disable context panels. And now as we add more, we just need to make sure we add them to this list. And so if we select the Reaper, the first thing we're going to do is disable all of our context panels. And then we're going to activate just the Reaper panel. And the same thing for the Nexus. So in our scripts, now we have fields for all the different panels. So we have Nexus panel, Reaper panel. By default, why don't we turn off the Nexus panel? So there's nothing in our context menu. We can click on this, now that shows up, or we can click on this, and a separate one shows up just for the Reaper. So why don't we, yeah, that's fine. I think by default, I will start off with the Nexus selected. So we'll put that on selected here, and we'll enable his panel. And the Nexus needs to create that ring thing itself. So we're going to grab a reference to selectable actor and activate it. Get component selectable actor dot and hopefully we can just call this on mouse down function. Actually, that's not necessary. It's just call selected equals true. Dot selected equals true. And I think for selecting these, I want kind of a larger area because it's easy to miss. So we're just going to create a box around these. Rather than using a mesh collider, we can remove this component and add a box collider. And for size, I'm just going to double this, roughly. All right. So the next step is going to be to create enemies, and I'll do that in the next video.